You won't believe the twists and turns of this story. Imagine a 70-year-old millionaire woman, a respected and influential figure, living a life of luxury and generosity. Now imagine the nightmare when she is kidnapped by a young stranger of just 19 years old. What begins as an act of terror quickly turns into something completely unexpected. As the days go by, an unthinkable connection arises between her and her kidnapper, defying all expectations and revealing deep and confusing feelings. What she discovers when she is freed will shake everything you think about love and redemption. Watch until the end to discover the surprising outcome of this story of mystery and emotion that you would never have imagined. Make sure you are already subscribed to my channel. I will be happy to have you with me always. Teresa's story begins on a golden autumn morning, when the leaves of the trees dance gently in the wind and the sun illuminates the elegant neighborhood where she lives. Teresa is a 70-year-old woman, an imposing and inspiring figure for everyone around her. Her name echoes throughout the community as a synonym for generosity and kindness. With her silver hair and sparkling eyes, Teresa carries a serene and dignified presence. Her mansion, an imposing building in the classical style, is surrounded by a lush garden, carefully maintained by dedicated gardeners. The scent of flowers and the sound of birds are part of her daily life, creating an atmosphere of peace and tranquility. Teresa is a true philanthropist. Her life is dedicated to helping others, and she is known for her generous contributions to various charities. She frequently attends charity events, always willing to offer her help and support. Her friends and family admire her not only for her wealth, but for the sincere way in which she cares for the well-being of others. Every week, Teresa hosts a lunch at her home for young people who need guidance and support. She believes that everyone has hidden potential, and is willing to invest time and resources to help develop these abilities. At her meetings, she listens attentively to each story, offering wise advice and words of encouragement. Teresa has a knack for making people feel valued and understood. In addition to her direct involvement, Teresa also runs a foundation that supports a variety of social projects. The foundation is a reflection of her vision for a more just and compassionate world. She is often seen visiting ongoing projects, talking to beneficiaries and ensuring that everything is going according to plan. Her dedication is evident in every aspect of her life. Even in her spare time, Teresa dedicates herself to reading books on personal and social development, always looking for ways to improve her support strategies. She maintains a close circle of friends who share her passion for doing good and frequently organizes events to raise funds and promote important causes. Teresa is undoubtedly a woman with a big heart and influence. Her life is a testament to the fact that true wealth does not lie in money alone, but in the ability to touch the lives of others in a positive and lasting way. Her story is a source of inspiration, showing that generosity and empathy can transform lives and create a legacy of kindness. Thus begins the journey of Teresa, a woman whose life of selflessness and compassion is about to be challenged in an unexpected and moving way. The fateful day. It was a bright and peaceful afternoon like any other, when Teresa was enjoying a stroll around the grounds of her mansion. The sky was clear and blue, with only a few scattered clouds, and the light breeze made the leaves on the trees sway gently. Teresa, as usual, had gone for a relaxing walk through her garden and along the path that led to the nearby park, where she enjoyed connecting with nature. She was dressed in an elegant summer dress, in keeping with the mild weather, and wore a straw hat to protect herself from the sun. As she walked, Teresa greeted her neighbors with a kind smile and exchanged a few friendly words. Her presence, always warm and welcoming, made those around her feel at ease. Everything seemed normal until suddenly, an unknown young man appeared on the path ahead. The young man, who looked to be just over 19 years old, was dressed in simple clothes and was staring at Teresa. His demeanor was restless and his expression was a mixture of nervousness and determination. Teresa noticed his presence, but as always she tried to maintain her friendly attitude, thinking that he might be a young man from the community who needed help. However, what happened next was anything but expected. Without warning, the young man quickly advanced towards Teresa and, with a trembling voice, demanded that she follow him. Surprise and fear gripped Teresa's heart. The situation escalated in an instant, and she realized that the young man was armed with a small knife, a detail that made the threat seem even more real. "Please don't do anything that could harm us," Teresa said, trying to remain calm. I don't want any trouble, but we need to resolve this peacefully. Her voice was firm, but there was a slight tremor, a reflection of the natural fear in the face of such an unexpected situation. The young man, who introduced himself as Andre, didn't respond immediately. He seemed to be struggling with his own thoughts and emotions. The tension in the air was palpable, and Teresa could feel the weight of the decision Andre was about to make. With a quick, determined movement, he took her arm and guided her off the main path, towards a more secluded area. The walk to the place where Andre had planned to take her was short, but Teresa felt like each step was taking an eternity. She tried to think of a way to deal with the situation, while Andre's mind seemed to be in a whirlwind of decisions and doubts. Finally, they reached an old abandoned warehouse, hidden among trees and bushes. It was a dark and somewhat scary place, far from the sight of anyone who could help. Teresa's fear was mixed with a sense of urgency and concern for her own safety. Andre pushed Teresa into the warehouse and, with an expression of desperation, announced that he needed money. He was determined to get what he wanted, but Teresa could see that there was more to it than that. His insecurity and fear were evident, and this made the situation even more complex. As Teresa tried to understand the situation, her instinct for empathy began to manifest itself. She realized that Andre was struggling with enormous pressure, and his behavior seemed to be a cry for help disguised as desperate action. She decided to try to establish a calm and rational communication, knowing that this could be her only chance of finding a solution to this sudden nightmare. The fateful day, which had started as a simple walk on a sunny day, turned into a frightening and challenging experience, marked by the presence of a determined young man and the palpable fear that hung in the air. The future of both of them was about to be shaped by this unexpected and terrifying experience. Attempt at communication. The warehouse where Teresa found herself was plunged into an ominous gloom. The dim light that penetrated through the broken windows cast long, distorted shadows on the walls, creating an atmosphere of unease and desolation. Teresa sat in a corner, her heart pounding against her chest. Andre's presence, still with the knife in his hand, made her feel constant fear, but it also inspired her to try anything that could help her get out of this situation. She knew that she could not just sit around, waiting for the situation to resolve itself. With a concentrated effort, Teresa slowly stood up, trying not to alarm Andre. She moved a little closer, maintaining a calm and relaxed posture. Her goal was to try to establish a dialogue, to create a human connection that could defuse the tension between them. "I see that you are going through a very difficult time," Teresa began, her voice soft and full of empathy. "And I want to understand what is happening. Maybe we can find a solution that will help us all." Andre watched her with an expression that mixed curiosity and distrust. He seemed surprised by Teresa's calm approach, and his gaze revealed a spark of vulnerability that was hidden behind the cold facade. He did not respond immediately, and the silence that followed seemed to weigh in the air like a heavy burden. Teresa, sensing that Andre needed more encouragement, continued speaking calmly. "I'm Teresa, and first and foremost, I want you to know that I'm here to listen. You don't have to do this alone. If there's anything you need, maybe I can help in some way." As she spoke, Teresa tried to make eye contact with Andre, her gaze reflecting sincerity and genuine concern. She noticed that he was hesitant, the muscles in his body tense, but there was a glimmer of something softer in his eyes, as if he were struggling to hold on to his resolve even as his conscience challenged him. "Do you have something you need to resolve?" Teresa asked, her voice thick with understanding. "If you tell me, maybe we can find a solution that doesn't involve violence. I'm here to help, not to judge." Andre seemed to be struggling internally. His hardened expression gave way to moments of doubt. He looked at the knife in his hand and then at Teresa, as if he was considering whether he could trust her. The tension in the warehouse was palpable, but Teresa's calm and compassion were starting to make a difference. I don't know if you'll believe me," Andre finally murmured, his voice thick with frustration. "I didn't want to do this. My family, my mother is sick, and I'm desperate. I just wanted to find a way to get some quick money." Teresa listened intently, her heart sinking as she heard the desperation in Andre's voice. She knew her words could be an opening to something bigger, a chance to reach a peaceful solution. "I understand," she said firmly. "We all go through difficult times. The most important thing right now is to find a way out that doesn't hurt anyone. The conversation continued with Teresa gently asking questions, trying to understand more about Andre's situation, and offering suggestions on how he could get help for his family without resorting to extreme actions. She used her experience and empathy to create a space where Andre could feel heard and understood, rather than simply pressured. As the conversation progressed, the tension in the warehouse seemed to ease a little. The ice was beginning to break, and the atmosphere filled with fear was giving way to an opportunity for resolution. Teresa was determined to transform that moment of despair into a chance to help, showing that even in the darkest situations, communication and understanding could open doors to hope and solutions. Revealing Andre's motivations, the warehouse, previously a scene of desolation and tension, was beginning to be illuminated by an unexpected conversation. Teresa, with her calm voice and welcoming gaze, was managing to break the barrier of coldness that Andre maintained around him. Sitting at a safe distance, she continued to speak with an empathetic tone, trying to open space so that Andre would feel comfortable sharing his truth. Andre, although still tense, seemed to be loosening up a little. His eyes, which had previously been cold and determined, were beginning to reflect a deep sadness. He looked at the floor, and his hands were shaking slightly, revealing the emotional weight he was carrying. The knife in his hand was forgotten, resting at his side, as if its importance had diminished in the face of what he was about to share. I don't know where to start," Andre said, his voice breaking a little. "It's not easy to talk about this." Teresa, noticing his difficulty, made an encouraging gesture. "You don't need to worry about how you're going to tell me. What matters is that you feel comfortable talking. I'm here to listen." Andre took a deep breath and began to speak, each word filled with the pain and desperation he had tried to hide. "I come from a very poor family. My father left home when I was little, and my mother has worked hard to support us, but it's not enough. My younger brother Lucas is very sick. He needs expensive treatment, and my mother can't afford it. We are desperate." Teresa listened attentively, her eyes full of understanding. The scenario of poverty and illness that Andre revealed was a painful portrait of the struggle of many families. His story brought a new perspective to what had previously seemed like a purely criminal act. "I tried everything," Andre continued, his voice thick with frustration and guilt. "I worked several jobs, but nothing was enough. The bills piled up, and Lucas's situation got worse. I was out of options and that was the only thing I could think of. I didn't want to do this. I was just desperate and had no way out." Teresa felt a pang in her heart when she heard about Andre and his family's suffering. She realized that the kidnapping, although terrible, was a reflection of his desperation and despair. She understood that Andre's situation was a cry for help, and her role now was to find a way to turn it into something more positive. "You did what you thought was necessary to protect your family," Teresa said, trying to show genuine empathy. "It's natural to want to do anything to help the ones we love. But there is another way. There are organizations and resources that can help get your brother the treatment he needs." Andre looked at her with a mixture of surprise and hope. "Do you think there's any chance we can get help? I don't know where to start. I've looked, but I haven't found anything." Teresa gestured encouragingly. "I have contacts with several institutions and foundations that can help in situations like yours. I can help you connect with these organizations. The important thing now is to find a way to get the help your family needs without resorting to actions that put everyone at risk." The revelation of Andre's motivations brought a new level of complexity to the situation. The fear and desperation he felt were now clearer than ever. Teresa was determined to use her influence and resources to help not only Andre, but also his family, turning a crisis into an opportunity for support and solidarity. The warehouse, once a place of tension and fear, began to transform into a space of dialogue and hope. Mutual understanding and the promise of help created a bridge between Teresa and Andre, offering a light at the end of the tunnel for both of them. Andre's story revealed the depth of despair that can lead someone to make extreme decisions, but it also highlighted the importance of empathy and selfless action in times of crisis. Developing an unexpected connection. As the warehouse remained in the shadows, a heavy silence filled the space, interrupted only by Teresa and Andre's labored breathing. The tension in the air was slowly transforming into something more subtle, as the young man began to open up to Teresa, revealing layers of his own vulnerability. The coldness that had initially dominated Andre was beginning to fade, and Teresa realized that there was an opportunity to establish a genuine human connection. Teresa, with her unshakable calm, decided to continue the dialogue. She knew that creating a true connection could be the key to resolving the situation in a peaceful and productive way. "Andre," she began, in a tone that sought to soften the atmosphere even further, "you've already told me a lot about your family and the difficulties you're going through. I also have my own stories and challenges. Perhaps sharing a little about ourselves can help us understand each other better." Andre looked at her with a curious expression, still maintaining a certain distance, but visibly more receptive. He seemed intrigued by Teresa's proposal and, for a moment, hesitated before beginning to speak. "I never thought of doing this," he said, his voice full of uncertainty. "But perhaps it would be good to talk a little." Teresa smiled gently and made an encouraging gesture. "Make yourself comfortable. I'm here to listen without judgment." The first story Andre shared was about his childhood. He spoke about his family, describing the days of scarcity and the small victories that gave him hope. He told of the times when his mother would do whatever it took to make sure he and his brother had some fun, even when resources were scarce. "My mother always made sure we felt loved and special, even when we had almost nothing. She would tell us bedtime stories, creating magical worlds for us, so we could forget the harsh reality for a moment." Teresa listened attentively, her heart warming as she heard about a mother's dedication and love in the midst of hardship. She responded with a story of her own, about her own childhood and the challenges she faced to get to where she was. "I grew up in a poor neighborhood and I also went through hard times. My father passed away when I was young, and my mother worked hard to support us. I remember how even in the hardest times, she always found a way to support us and teach us to be grateful for what we have." The conversation flowed more and more easily, and Andre began to share more about his dreams and hopes for the future. He spoke of his plans to help his family and provide Lucas with a better life, a deep desire that drove him despite the hardships. "I just want my brother to have the chance to live a normal life, like other children. I have dreams of a future where my family no longer has to struggle to survive." Teresa, touched by Andre's words, offered words of encouragement and understanding. "You have a generous heart, Andre. It's clear how much you care about your family. That determination and love are precious qualities. Maybe instead of going down this path, we can find a way to get you and your family the help you need. There are many resources available for people in situations like yours, and I can help connect you to those support networks." The conversation between Teresa and Andre continued to unfold in unexpected ways. They found common ground in their stories and feelings, creating a bridge of empathy and understanding that seemed to bridge the gap between them. Andre, who had initially seemed ruthless and cold, was now revealing a softer, more vulnerable part of himself. Teresa, in turn, was opening her heart, offering a glimpse of hope and solidarity. The warehouse, which had previously been a space of fear and tension, was now transforming into a setting of connection and understanding. The unexpected bond between Teresa and Andre was forming, revealing the human capacity to find empathy and humanity, even in the most challenging situations. Their dialogue was creating a new perspective on the situation, and both were beginning to see a possible way out of the seemingly endless nightmare. Escape plan. The warehouse, which had previously been a place of tension and despair, was now enveloped in an atmosphere of cautious hope. Teresa, with the empathy and understanding she had cultivated during her conversation with Andre, knew that it was time to act to find a solution that could save them both from the situation. She decided that it was time to present a proposal that offered a way out without resorting to more crimes. "Look, Andre," Teresa began, her voice calm and full of conviction, "I understand the despair you're going through and I really want to help, but we need to find a way to resolve this without causing more problems for you or me." Andre watched her with an expression of curiosity mixed with a hint of hope. Teresa continued, with a carefully thought-out plan. "I know organizations and foundations that can help in situations like yours. If you release me now, I will make sure that you and your family receive the financial support you need for your brother's treatment." Andre was hesitant, but Teresa managed to convey a sense of sincerity and commitment. "I will commit to helping you find the resources you need. I only ask that you let me go and that we can resolve this peacefully. Teresa's proposal seemed to offer a practical and altruistic solution, and Andre was beginning to seriously consider it. He looked at the knife that still lay beside him, considering the options before him. The idea of escaping a criminal path and getting legitimate help for his family was appealing, but there were still doubts in his mind. However, Teresa's plan was far from safe. The warehouse, which had seemed like a temporary refuge, was about to become a crisis scene when Andre's accomplices, whom he had tried to keep away, suddenly arrived. Moment of crisis. The sound of heavy footsteps and low conversations began to approach, breaking the relative calm that Teresa and Andre had achieved. Andre's accomplices, a gang that had helped to prepare the kidnapping, were now in front of the warehouse entrance. Their figures stood out against the dim light that came from outside, bringing a new wave of tension. "Come on, Andre!" shouted one of the accomplices, a man with a menacing expression and a robust appearance. "What are you doing? Wasn't the plan to kidnap this woman and demand ransom? Why are you talking instead of following the plan?" Andre's face contorted with fear and concern. He looked at Teresa, who was standing, her expression a mix of fear and determination. "They weren't in the plan. I was trying to find a way to resolve this without further violence," he explained quickly, his voice shaking with anxiety. The accomplices were not willing to listen to explanations. One of them, a man with a cruel look in his eyes, advanced towards Teresa, his steps resonating with implicit threats. "If you don't follow the plan and take the money, we'll have to take drastic measures against her," he said in a cold, threatening voice. Teresa felt a chill down her spine as she realized the seriousness of the threats. She approached Andre, trying to act quickly to defuse the situation. "Andre, you need to make a decision now. If you don't act, the situation will get worse for all of us," she said, her voice filled with urgency and concern. Andre was in an agonizing dilemma. The fear of his accomplices and the desire to protect Teresa were in conflict. The real threat of violence made him feel paralyzed, but at the same time, he knew there was a way to resolve everything without further tragedies. "I'll do what you suggested," Andre finally said, his voice full of resignation. "I'll release Teresa and get my family the help they need. But please help us get out of this situation." Teresa breathed a sigh of relief, but the tension was still high. "I'll do everything I can to help you. We just need to stay calm and stick to the plan. We'll find a solution to this." The atmosphere in the warehouse was thick with tension and fear, but Andre's decision to follow Teresa's plan offered a small glimmer of hope. The crisis was at its peak, and the future seemed uncertain, but the unexpected connection between Teresa and Andre had created an opportunity for resolution. The key now was to overcome the immediate threats and find a way to ensure the safety and support they both needed. Andre's decision, the warehouse, once a place of despair and fear, was now filled with palpable tension. Time seemed to drag as Andre faced a decisive moment, a moral dilemma that would define not only Teresa's fate, but his own as well. The threats from his accomplices had escalated the situation, and the clock was ticking against him. Andre looked at the stern faces of his accomplices who were now surrounding Teresa, their threats still echoing off the walls of the warehouse. Their eyes, which had previously been hardened by need and fear, now reflected a deep internal struggle. He had heard Teresa's words, had felt her sincerity, and most importantly, had seen the suffering in his own eyes. It was time to act and show that there was something more in his heart than just despair. "This isn't right," Andre muttered to himself, his heart beating fast. He knew that the decision he was about to make was not just a matter of choice but of courage. He turned to his accomplices, his voice firm despite his fear. "I will not go through with the plan. I am releasing Teresa now. No more violence." The accomplices, surprised and furious at Andre's change of heart, began to stir. The man with the cruel gaze took a threatening step toward Andre. "You're making a mistake, boy. If you don't follow the plan, you'll regret it. You'll have to deal with us." Andre didn't back down. His eyes were full of determination, and he seemed to have found an unexpected inner strength. With a resolute gesture, he approached Teresa, who was attentive and expectant. "Teresa, I'm going to release you now. Please stay calm and don't move until I tell you to," With his trembling hands, Andre began to untie the ropes that bound Teresa. His every move was an act of courage, a direct challenge to his accomplices. He knew he was risking everything, but the desire to protect Teresa and do the right thing was stronger than the fear he felt. While Andre worked to free Teresa, his accomplices were ready to act. The man with the menacing expression advanced on Andre, but was restrained by other members of the gang, who were as surprised as they were enraged by the betrayal. The liberation. Finally, with one last knot undone, Teresa was free. She stood up, her legs a little unsteady after hours of tension, but her expression was one of relief and gratitude. Andre, breathing heavily and his heart racing, looked at her with a mixture of sadness and hope. "You're free," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "Go and get help. I'll meet with my family and try to find a way out for all of us." Teresa gave a brief smile of thanks, but Andre's look was not a simple goodbye. It was a look that carried the weight of a difficult choice and the hope of a better future. "Thank you, Andre. I don't know what to say, but I hope you find a solution for your family." With one last look at Andre, Teresa headed for the exit of the warehouse. The fresh air and daylight greeted her with a sense of freedom that she had begun to take for granted. Her thoughts were confused, mixing relief at her release with the complexity of the feelings Andre had awakened in her. As Teresa walked away, Andre stayed behind, facing the fury of his accomplices who were now angry at his betrayal. He knew he would have to face the consequences of his actions, but he felt he had done the right thing. Teresa returned to her life, but the experience had left a deep mark. She was torn between gratitude for her own freedom and empathy for Andre and his desperate situation. The emotional impact of the experience was complex, and she knew she would never see the world the same way again. Andre's courageous decision had saved Teresa and at the same time, revealed the depth of his own struggles and humanity. The warehouse, which had witnessed a moment of great tension, now became the setting for a story of redemption and hope, with the characters facing the challenges that the future held for them. Post-kidnapping reflections. After her release, Teresa's life returned to normal, but she was far from finding the inner peace she had hoped for. The experience of kidnapping had left not only physical and emotional scars, but also a complex of feelings that she could not untangle. Each day, as she tried to return to her routine, Teresa found herself immersed in deep reflections on what she had experienced. In moments of calm, when the noise of the world seemed to fade away, memories of Andre would emerge in her mind with surprising clarity. The conversations they had had, the vulnerable look he showed, and the courage he demonstrated in the face of adversity were etched in her memory like a persistent echo. Teresa remembered the softness in Andre's voice when he spoke about his sick brother, the sincerity in his eyes as he told stories about his difficult childhood. She thought of his courage as he untied the ropes that bound her, and of his desire to protect his family at any cost. It was impossible for Teresa not to be touched by the profound humanity that Andre revealed during those moments of crisis. As Teresa walked the streets of the city, attended social events and got involved in charitable activities, there was something different in her gaze, a mixture of melancholy and hope. The feelings she developed for Andre were confusing and intense, defying her expectations and her certainties. She realized that, despite the terror and anguish she had experienced, there was a space in her heart that was filled with compassion and even affection for him. Attempting to contact, determined to better understand what she was feeling and to offer Andre some help, Teresa decided to use her resources to locate him. The first step in her plan involved seeking information about Andre's whereabouts through her contacts and the authorities involved in the case. She began to investigate discreetly, speaking with police officers and trusted friends who might have some clues. Teresa used her influence and networks to gather information about the young man who had touched her life in such an unexpected way. She contacted victim support organizations and asked for their help in locating Andre, explaining her intention to offer assistance and support. She was determined to find a way to help him get back on his feet and provide a path to recovery that he and his family needed. The journey to find Andre was not easy. Teresa faced obstacles and challenges, including initial resistance from authorities and difficulty in obtaining clear information. However, her determination and sincerity of intentions helped her overcome these barriers. She knew the journey would not be easy, but she felt it was important to do everything she could to help Andre, while also clarifying her own feelings. During this time of searching, Teresa began to open up to close friends and family about her experience. She shared Andre's story and the complex emotions she had developed, seeking advice and support as she navigated this inner turmoil. The understanding and encouragement she received from her loved ones was instrumental in helping her process her feelings and continue her mission to help Andre. Teresa's desire to understand and help Andre turned into a personal journey of redemption and discovery. She was willing to face any obstacle to offer him a chance to start over, while also finding a path to the inner peace she sought. Teresa and Andre's story, which began in a place of fear and despair, was now unfolding into a tale of hope, transformation, and unexpected connection. The reunion, fate with its unexpected twists and turns, provided Teresa and Andre with a reunion that seemed almost unreal. After weeks of searching and efforts to locate Andre, the opportunity arose unexpectedly. Teresa, with the help of her network of contacts and the assistance of support organizations, managed to track Andre and his family to a small town on the outskirts. The little town was picturesque and peaceful, in contrast to the tension and turmoil of past events. Teresa arrived at a modest house in a quiet neighborhood, where Andre and his family had found a small temporary refuge. The house, although simple, was full of signs of care and hope, a clear representation of Andre's ongoing struggle to improve the lives of his sick brother and his family. Teresa parked her car in front of the house and, with her heart racing, went up to the door. She hesitated for a moment before ringing the doorbell. The door slowly opened and, looking ahead, Teresa found Andre. He was visibly surprised, with an expression of disbelief and a mix of relief and nervousness. "Hello, Andre," Teresa began, her voice full of tenderness and firmness. "I hope you remember me. I am Teresa. I have come to offer you and your family the help I promised." Andre stood still for a moment, processing the sight of Teresa in front of his door. His face lit up with a sincere smile, but also with a touch of confusion. "Teresa? I can't believe you actually came all the way here." "I promised I would help," Teresa replied, her eyes shining with a mix of determination and empathy. "I have obtained resources and support to help your brother. Let's talk and see how we can do this together." The reunion was emotional and full of gratitude. Teresa met Andre's brother, a young man who looked frail but had an indomitable spirit. She also spoke with Andre's mother, who was visibly relieved and grateful for the help offered. Through detailed discussions and with the support of health and social care experts, Teresa ensured that Andre's family received the necessary treatment and financial support to face the challenges they had faced. Emotional conclusion. As the days passed and Teresa's help began to make a tangible difference in Andre's family's lives, their relationship evolved in unexpected ways. Teresa's desire to help went beyond words. She became genuinely involved in Andre and his family's lives, creating a connection based on mutual respect and understanding. During this time, Teresa and Andre had several in-depth conversations about their experiences, feelings, and hopes for the future. Both acknowledged the complexity of the emotions that had arisen during the abduction and the difficult decisions they had had to make. Teresa expressed her desire to better understand Andre's motivations and to offer support in a more meaningful way. Andre, in turn, expressed sincere gratitude and a new understanding of the importance of redemption and solidarity. On a sunny afternoon, as they sat in Andre's garden, Teresa and Andre reflected on the journey that had brought them together. "I never imagined that such a terrible situation could lead to something so positive," Andre said, looking at Teresa with an appreciative look. Teresa smiled, feeling a sense of peace and fulfillment. "Life has a strange way of showing us what really matters. What we've experienced cannot be erased, but we can use it to do good and grow as people." With Teresa's help, Andre and his family found new hope and an opportunity to rebuild their lives. The bond that formed between them was based on deep understanding and mutual respect, transforming a traumatic event into a story of redemption and human connection. Teresa and Andre's reunion marked the beginning of a new phase in their lives. Their story ended on a note of hope and renewal, demonstrating that even in the darkest situations, there is room for kindness, change, and genuine connection. What began as an experience of fear and uncertainty turned into a journey of healing and solidarity, leaving a lasting mark on both their hearts.